Hi, my name is Matt Spa, and I am a headshot photographer and videographer in Atlanta, Georgia. The topic today is hand-painted backdrops. The question is, how hard could it be? For a couple of years, I've been flirting with the idea of creating some hand-painted backdrops. I think the texture that you can get from those is gorgeous. And I think that when you have an actual hand-painted backdrop on site, it changes the way your sitter responds to the session. I looked at buying some. They're not terribly expensive, but certainly would be cheaper to buy the materials myself and create it if I could. So the question is, can a guy with really no painterly experience pull these off, pull the stuff together to get it done, and come up with a result that was appropriate for what I was looking for? This is going to be a two-parter because I'm going to do a pair of drops. One is going to be lighter, that'll be this one, and that's for more corporate environments, and just a really subtle texture in the background, just something to keep it from being very flat back there. The second one will be more dramatic, something darker that I would use for performing artists, actors, and the like. So come along with me and you can watch me fail miserably or hopefully succeed, and you can try it yourself. Let's go. Step one was to do some research. I spent a lot of time on YouTube looking at videos mostly of guys in a time lapse with their roller going around like this and coming back with either some horrible result or admitting that they had failed miserably. Very rarely could I get some specifics on materials and technique and where do you get the canvas and what kind of paint and should you use a roller or a sponge or a rag or whatever. The results that I was seeing a lot of times were way too contrasty for what I'm looking at. I want something very subtle. And so step one was to figure out the stuff. So here's the stuff. The first thing you're going to need is some canvas. A lot of the people that I saw doing this were going to their local home center, Home Depot or Lowe's, and buying painter's drop cloths. And they are 8 or maybe 10 ounce canvas. They're folded up and they're not terribly expensive, but I think they're too much money for what they are. The next thing you would see would be the time lapse of them with the iron, or them with the steamer, or them trying to stretch it out to get all of the creases and cracks and folds and stuff like that out of it. I didn't want to deal with that. Also, when I have painted on that in the past, it is highly absorbent. It's kind of its job to absorb paint and keep it off the floor, but didn't give me a good working time, didn't give me what I wanted. So the canvas that I'm using is from a company called Big Duck Canvas. They are in Winder, Georgia, which fortunately for me is right up the road, and I was able to pick up what I needed. But they sell a pre-primed canvas. So no mixing up PVA glue, no buying gesso, no spending hours trying to flatten out your canvas. It comes on a cardboard roll that you can reuse. It comes in a plastic bag that you can reuse. It's flat, it's gorgeous. And it's $8.99 a yard for 6 foot wide canvas. So I bought a 6 foot wide by 18 foot long canvas for $54, something like that. Super cheap. Actually works out being cheaper than the canvas you would buy at a home center in a lot of cases. And it's 12 ounce, so it's got some heft to it. So go to Big Duck Canvas or find some other supplier local to you. Some art supply stores might have it, but it's awesome. Now I've got my canvas, it was time to buy paint. Did a little bit of internet research looking for the most neutral grays that I could find. I didn't want anything with a color cast for this exercise. I'm trying to keep it simple. So Sherwin-Williams makes something called Zircon. I think it's 2129 or 7667. I can't remember. There'll be a super over here somewhere. Benjamin Moore is sold in Ace Hardware stores around me, and it's a really good can of paint. They have a couple of them that are considered neutral. One is called Metro Gray. The other one's called Cement Gray. Metro Gray is $14.59. I ended up going with the Cement Gray. The number was 2112. Something from my youth just inexplicably drew me to it. So I got, this is the 2112-60 Cement Gray, which is considered to be really neutral. I bought that in a quart. It was 20 bucks. And then you can get samples that are also flat paint. So I got a sample of the lighter color and the 2 darker. So everything on this sheet is basically the same color, but different shades. So it gets darker, but still neutral. So canvas, I think I already mentioned, was 50 something dollars. 20 for this. These are $7 a piece, so what's that? 40, 41, $42 in paint. So I've got less than $100 in it so far, and we'll see what happens. Other things that you need with the paint obviously are, I just used a straight 3/8 nap roller, tray, liners. I like little liners, keeps things neat. And I bought a sponge, so I'm not going to use any textured rollers. I'm not going to use any rags or anything like that to try to move the paint around, and we'll see what happens. So I have taken my roll of canvas and cut it into two 9-foot lengths. I'm going to put down a drop cloth on the floor in the shop and put my paint in a roller and lay down a solid base coat first, and then I'll come back with my lighter colors and start to mix. One thing I am going to do is add a product called Floetrol. Floetrol, you can get it at a home center or a paint supply store. It is a leveler. So if you ever have a bunch of doors to paint, get yourself some Floetrol. It will make your results much better. Floetrol will also slow down the dry time of the paint. So I have primed canvas to reduce how quickly it's going to sink in. That should slow down dry time. And then the Floetrol should give me some extra working time. It kind of changes the feel of the paint too. It's not terribly expensive. I don't know if it's going to make a huge difference or not, but we'll find out. And it's time to paint. So here's your time lapse. That was fun. So as you saw in the time lapse, I laid down just a solid coat of the cement gray, which is the 211260, and then poured maybe a third of a pint, the samples come in pints, into the tray, a little bit of Floetrol, and then just mixed it with a stick. Not trying to make a new color. I actually wanted multiple colors to end up on the roller. Then it's a light dip with the roller into the pan, and then kind of a bounce roll onto the canvas, and even a little twist every now and then, just to kind of get that second color to start to mix in a little bit. So I'm gonna let that dry, and we'll go back for coat number 2. Okay, so now we're ready to mix up some paint for the second coat. I'm using the same roller and tray. This is the cement gray going in, and then I add a little bit of Stormy Monday, the next darker color. No real science here. I'm just kind of pouring some paint together. Lastly, the Floetrol goes in, which did seem to slow things down a little bit. And then just give it a little bit of a stir. Don't totally mix it. So here's coat number 2 going down, and you can kind of see that technique I'm talking about, where the roller just kind of bounces off the canvas and give it a little twist every now and then. This worked really well. The only thing I found was that the paint does dry darker than what it goes down, and it gets a little bit more contrasty as it dries. But I'm just working my way around the canvas. Again, I'm not trying to create a vignette or anything here. I just want something with subtle, even tones. While that paint was still wet, I'm going back with a sponge. That's just a mister, and put a little bit of water in there, but not a wet sponge, just a really slightly damp. And what I'm trying to do is just get rid of the obvious roller marks. The contrast is so narrow between these two that it's really, I don't even know how well this is going to show up. But I'm working my way around and just trying to take out those, again, those areas of hard contrast wherever the lighter roller was hitting the darker base coat. You can see me putting my hand in it. You can just work back over that stuff. I don't have a set technique. You can see what I'm doing. And it worked pretty well. I'm very pleased with the results. Here I am just trying to get a little bit more color back in there. There was some areas that were too dark or too light. And I'm mixing the color. I'm pouring the Stormy Monday right onto the sponge. That sponge is still really dry, so I'm kind of able to work the corners of it. I've even flipped it over a couple of times at some point to get it even drier. So it's just a matter of pushing paint around. But because the colors are so close together, It's not too hard. You can keep an eye on it, and it's doable. And here you have it, the fruits of my labor. I never thought I would get this close to what I saw in my head for the amount of time and money that I've invested. It was a relatively quick process. It was relatively inexpensive, and I'm thrilled. I've done a few test shots with this, and I'm really pleased with the results. I shoot headshots usually at 6'3", and I put people about 4 to 5 feet off the background. This gives me some flexibility. I can bring people closer if I'm in a tight space. I can go greater depth of field and still not start to compete with my subject matter. So I think there's great flexibility here. I think it will help my subjects to relax a little bit. It's pleasing. It did what I wanted it to do. So there you have it, my first experience with hand-painted backdrops. And I have to say I would call it a success. If you're thinking about doing this, by all means, get some good canvas, get the right paint, and just keep working it until you get the result that you want. I was not shooting for something terribly difficult here. I kept the contrast low, I didn't do a vignette, but I got something that I think will serve me for many years to come. If you decide to try and want to share your experiences, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. If you've been doing this for 100 years and you want to share your thoughts on ways that it could be done easier or better, by all means, share your comments down below. I've still got another canvas to do, and that will be part 2 of this series. I'll be doing something darker with a little bit of a vignette maybe that I would use for performing artists or more dramatic portraits. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like or a subscribe or share me on social media. I would love to see this channel grow, and I'll do my best to keep creating content that'll keep you coming back. Thanks a lot for watching.